we have other matches going on. We will follow the match between Division K and Division E. For this evening, I am your moderator, Anna Harry. First, I want to introduce to you our Zoom Master, Shirley Richardson. Toastmaster Shirley, awesome. I want to thank all of our judges for volunteering their time to be here to judge this exciting debate. I will now invite our judges to introduce themselves to the audience.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. I'll be acting as the Chief Judge this evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Claudia Powell. I'll be one of your judge this evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandra Theodore, and I am judge number 3 this evening.
Awesome, thank you. So let's put our hands together for our judges. The Debate Masters Tour will maintain the following timing format. The proposition's first speaker will speak for 5 minutes. The opposition and speaker number 1 will also speak for 5. Speakers number 2 for both the proposition and the opposition, you will also speak for 5 minutes. After these 2 presentations, we're going to have the audience interaction. So I'm looking forward to you, the audience, having your points so that we can have a very engaging discussion. Once that segment is over, we are going to have our summary remarks from the opposition and the proposition, and they will be doing that in 3 minutes. Each speaker, you are reminded that you have 15 seconds in which to presentation. This evening, Division A, you will be our proposing team and you will be noted as Team A. So for our judges, please note that Division A will be referred to as Team A, and Division K, the opposing team, will be referred to as Team B. At this moment, I want to invite our participants from Division A. Introduce yourself to us in your speaking order.
Good evening, I'm Myron Eustatius. I will be the first speaker for Team A.
Second speaker for Team A, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening, Madam Moderator. My name is Erwin Lobato. I will be second speaker for Team A.
Awesome. And your third speaker?
I am also the third speaker, Madam Moderator.
Okay, awesome. So speaker number 1 and speaker number 3, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Division K, can you please introduce to us your speakers in their presenting order?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Claudine Bailey, and I'm the first speaker for Division K.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I am the second speaker for Division K.
Thank you, Toastmaster Sean. My name is Domain Gordon, and I am the third speaker for Division K, Team B.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have met our speakers for Team A and Team B. Now, I want to introduce to you our timer. And our timer for this evening is Toastmaster Evelyn Durant. Toastmaster Evelyn, can you please indicate to our audience and our speakers how the timing will be done?
Good evening, Madam Moderator. For speakers number 1 and 2, for both the opposing and the proposing, at 3 minutes, you will see the green light. At 4 minutes, you will see the yellow light. And at 5 minutes, the red. You have 15 seconds to wrap up whatever it is that you are saying at the time. For the rebuttal. For the third speaker, you have 3 minutes. So at 1 minute, you will see the green. At 2 minutes, the yellow. And at 3 minutes, the red. You also have 15 seconds to wrap up. Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much, our timer, Yvette Lynn. Audience, are you ready? Okay, most importantly, debaters, are you ready? I see that
Definitely.
smile. I know that they are ready, so I will not keep longer. So we are going to start with our proposing team. And the result for this evening is social media impedes interpersonal communication. I would repeat that again. Social media impedes interpersonal communication. I invite to the virtual lectern our first speaker for Team A, Toastmaster Myron. Toastmaster Myron.
Social media impedes interpersonal communication. And we will not only prove this, but also that social media replaces true interpersonal communication with disruptive noise that is weakening our relationships and our society. Skillsyouneed.com defines interpersonal communication as the process by which people exchange information, feelings, and meaning through verbal and nonverbal messages. As Toastmasters, we already knew that interpersonal communication is much more than what is said. It is about how it is said and the nonverbal message through tone of voice, facial expression, gestures, and body language. The aim of interpersonal communication, by the way, is to build interpersonal relationships. This is defined as a strong, deep, or close association between two or more people that may range in duration from brief to enduring. This immediately brings us to one of the first problems of social media. Though social media is meant to facilitate communication, some scholars, such as Professor Chitan Bamari at the ACS College in Pune, argue that online communication has a negative effect on the quality of communication. Professor Paul Booth at the DePaul University in Chicago asserts that though we are communicating more, the way in which we are communicating has shifted from face-to-face to interaction to mediated communication. This means that we will rather mail than meet and rather text than talk on the phone. Our interactions on social media, however, tend to create weak ties. We don't feel as connected to people at the other end of our communication. The reason for this is that all the non-verbal communication that we use to put the verbal communication in perspective is lost through social media. There is also a question of volume. According to Professor Rob Dunbar at the Department of Experimental Psychology at Oxford, there is a 150 friends limit set by the size of our brains. So while we are connecting with faraway Insta friends, we are disconnecting from our real life friends. Need proof? Just walk into a random restaurant and you'll see a group of people sitting at the table, their heads buried in their smartphones. Are they communicating? In Bowling Alone, Robert Putnam describes the decline of social intercourse on which society itself is based. The main reason for this decline was technology individualizing people's leisure time through television and internet. This book was published in the year 2000. Forward to my friends sitting in the restaurant. Social media, while pretending to connect us more to each other, has led to shallow communications, shallow relationships, and a shallow society in danger of falling apart. In their song, Electrobotic, the Venezuelan group Caramelos de Cianuro say, and I translate, I no longer have the time for a record, nor do I have time for a song. Now it is the same to download the ringtone.
Yes.
Social media, the equivalent
Yes,
of
you
a
can.
ringtone. It is fun, but it is in no way comparable to the real thing. Has social media helped with communication and creating enduring relationships? Certainly. But I guess that is also the case for Tinder, Grindr, or Casual X. But I would not call them relationships. Social media communication is not interpersonal communication. It impedes true communication and even destroys our ability to communicate in the real world. Our next speaker will go deeper into the consequences of social media for interpersonal communication and our real life relationships. Moderator?
Thank you to our speaker number one. At this moment, we would allow the judges to mark their ballot. In the meantime, our speaker number one for Team B, please get ready. Our first speaker for Team B is Toastmaster Claudine. Toastmaster Claudine, you can approach the virtual lectern and you have 5 minutes to deliver your presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, my opponent just spoke about Dr. Booth. Now, let me tell you something Dr. Booth also said. He said, as social media becomes more normalized, we'll stop seeing it as changing things and start seeing it as the way things are. As a society, we'll be okay. We've always adjusted to new technology. This sounds like Dr. Booth, which he quoted, is supporting our point, which is that social media enhances interpersonal communication. Now, can you imagine what life would have been like if we never had during the pandemic, during lockdowns? Judges, ladies and gentlemen, my team emphatically disagrees with the moot. Be it resolved that social media impedes interpersonal communication. We assert, be it resolved that social media enhances interpersonal communication. As first speaker, I have the honor of 1, defining the key terms of this moot, 2, outlining the structure of my team's presentation, 3, presenting our first point. Let me begin with the terms. According to Investopedia, the term social media refers to a computer-based technology that facilitates the sharing of ideas, thoughts, and information through virtual networks and communities. Social media spans LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Instagram, and what do you know? Zoom. The next term is impede. Cambridge University Dictionary indicates that impede means more difficult for something to happen or more difficult for someone to do something. This takes us to interpersonal communication, which refers to the entire process and practice of exchanging ideas, information, and even emotional experiences that can be shared between people. This is from bookkeeper.com. Finally, enhance, as defined by Cambridge University Dictionary, is to improve the amount or the something. I reiterate that it is our unequivocal view that social media does not make interpersonal more difficult, rather it improves the quality of interpersonal communication through social impact, which I will address, as well as political and business relationship factors, which will be covered by our second speaker, while our third speaker will seal our resolve with an irrefutable rebuttal. Now to our first point. My opponents would have you believe that personal communication, but this is not the case. For years, scholars have limited the definition of interpersonal communication to face-to-face communication. However, in present times, the term has been elevated to include social media. Assistant Professor of Communication Studies at West Virginia University, David Bowman in 2013 opined, social media will likely become more increasingly integrated into the normal human experience like numerous communication techniques before it. The truth is, social media is responsible for connecting approximately 3.8 billion persons. With approximately half the world relying on social media, it is evident that social media is not going anywhere because it enhances interpersonal communication. Used to attend weddings, funerals, when it connected persons who were otherwise separated. In education, teachers use social media to communicate lessons and assignments to children. According to Miss Waugh, a teacher at the prestigious Boys and School in Jamaica, held in online classes. Let's talk online dating. David Corey in the dating app revenue and usage statistics dated October 22nd, 2021 indicated that 270 million users of online dating services in 2020. This demonstrates people who are otherwise introverted or shy have opportunities to meet and fall in love where they would have been impeded by their lack of confidence. Be it resolved, social media enhances interpersonal communication.
Thank you to our second speaker. At this time, judges, I encourage you to mark your ballots. In the meantime, our second speaker for Team A, you will be up next. Speaker number 2, Toastmaster Lobato. Would you please approach the virtual lectern? You have 5 minutes to do your presentation.
Madam Moderator, distinguished judges and friends, my Toastmaster friends. According to Statista, well-known statistical bureau, around 3 billion people use social media nowadays, which means that's of the world uses the social media for communication. Now, social media does not allow us to using interpersonal communication to its maximum potential that is related to your five senses. The five senses allow us to receive information from the environment in the form of sound, light, smell, taste, and touch. It is no surprise that this widespread use of social media has effect on communication. Fact number one, I will just resume some of the facts because of time constraints. Fact number one, the educational magazine Enlightening Educational Landscape says during one of its researches that it is easy for person-to-person access by using social media has made people lazy. Studies also show that 11% of adults prefer to stay home on the weekends and make posts on Facebook instead of going out and acquiring real-life experiences, which means that people are losing interest in meeting others in person. As a result, a decrease in amount of face-to-face relationship. This is going to lead to some serious issues. It has been proven that 93% of communication is nonverbal, and without these cues that people use to decipher the messages that is received in person, people will not be able to properly understand what the other person is truly saying or truly trying to say. Fact number two, the International Journal of Scientific Progress in its paper entitled Influence of Social Media in Interpersonal Communication states that youngsters have become more negligent and lazier in their interactions. Youngsters seem to prefer isolation and they seem to be in their own imaginary world rather than the real-life friends and interacting with neighbors and elderly in their family. The interaction of social platforms can be sometimes misleading and not only causing major specific misunderstandings between people, but also people get used to sitting alone, which is decreasing or degrading their creativity and hugely affecting their thinking ability. The introduction of using emojis to illustrate a written message or a graphical interface to express the reaction may seem fun and innocent, but it is also interfering with our ability to properly craft a written response. It ends up being too tempting to respond with a small picture or a funny photo than to use the mind to create a response with words from scratch. And concluding, do not misunderstand us. We are not, excuse me, we are not stating that social media is wrong, but all we are stating here is the fact that social media does impede interpersonal communication. Because at the end of the day, nothing can replace face-to-face conversation and interaction. Despite the explosion of online endorsements and social media dialogue between individuals and brand, researchers have found that word-of-mouth exchanges in depth conversations are still, and let me emphasize this, are still most influential. Madam Moderator.
Thank you, speaker number two, Toastmaster Owen. Judges, please write down your score for speaker number two. We will now hear from speaker number 2 for Team B, Toastmaster Sean Downer. Toastmaster Sean Downer, please approach the virtual lectern. You have 5 minutes to present your speech.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Judges, Toastmasters, friends and guests, or opponents who all have a social media account and often use these sites would have brought to you some illogical concepts about social media impeding interpersonal communication. Now, please afford me the opportunity to set the record straight. In response to the 2 comments the second speaker of the proposing team just made. In a recent report by Monica Anderson on Pew's research, it states 81% of teens 13 to 17 years reported that social media makes them feel more connected to people in their lives, and 68% said using social media makes them feel supported in tough times, the times we are in now, in a pandemic, government restrictions, when we can't move about. How else are we going to communicate? Here we are today in a social media platform. Communities, friendships, relationships, families. These are the important things to us, right? Well, I know these are the important things to me. Through social media, I am afforded the opportunity to stay connected to all the people who matter to me. Judges, Toastmasters, friends and guests, and worthy opponents. If social media keeps us connected and brings us closer, then it enhances our lives. Wouldn't you agree? Social media enhances our lives, relationships, and our communication. Interpersonal communication, to be more specific. Social media has revolutionized our approaches, and it has certainly influenced our political connections and our business and customer relationships. Let's talk politics. In a study by Anderson Magdala from Berlin, Germany, published in 2009, he stated, and I quote, "The internet has developed the interest towards politics of its users and improved political efficacy of the respondent, which create their online and offline political engagements," end quote. Further studies now show more than ever before, people's voices are being heard and politicians are more accessible and they are even more accountable, are held more accountable. Our democracy has been strengthened and our voices are being heard. Now, because of social media platforms, we have a direct line of interpersonal communications to anyone, any world leader who is just a direct message away. Social media is helping to amplify the response, the humanitarian response to crisis, and to support the affected, those who are afflicted in this crisis. Let's bring some of these issues closer. Do you remember that during the Arab Spring of 2011 and 2012, social media served as a vehicle to mobilize, organize, protest, and draw global attention? Or the $2 million collected in just 2 days for the victims of the Nepal earthquake in 2015. Too long to remember those world-changing events? This one is more current. I Can't Breathe, a viral video that showed the last words of now deceased George Floyd, that ignited the BLM, the Black Lives Movement, and sent spiraling effects through the world and caused meaningful changes to occur. This is interpersonal communication. This is social media. Now let's take a quick look at that secret garden of how interpersonal communication through social media strengthens business and customer relationships. Forbes in 2018 cited a survey of a 2017 survey that confirms that 5,700 marketers reveal that they are developing loyal fans for their brands via This type of loyalty can only be developed through interpersonal communication. The joy it feels to know that I or you can just send a message to your favorite shoe store as an example and receive an instant feedback, a meaningful assistance. This is interpersonal communication. This is social media. Business Today talked about how social media is creating that greater customer service by handling customer complaints, giving us a space as well for that one-on-one customer relation with business owners, or even for the customer service.
Thank you to speaker number 2, Toastmaster Sean Downer. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, while the judges mark their scores for speaker number 2, let's just show some appreciation for all our speakers thus far. So just show emojis, or you can just raise your hands and clap. So let's show appreciation for our speakers. Awesome. I see those emojis. Don't be afraid to show them. At this time, I would like to ask our Zoom master to kindly escort our teams and judges to their respective breakout rooms so that they have a chance to prepare their closing remarks while the judges finalize their scores thus far. Once all the teams and the judges have been moved, then it is time for you, the audience, to share your views on the resolve social media impedes interpersonal communication. I'm sure that many of you have your opinions, so I'm eagerly awaiting to hear what you have to say. As soon as our Zoom master confirms that they have left the room, I am going to take our volunteers that will share
Hola, buenas noches, everyone.
Madam Moderator, the speakers and the judges are in their respective rooms.
Thank you very much, Madam Zoom Master. So audience, it is your turn. And we are all Toastmasters, so we are used to the impromptu speaking segment. So let's hear your views. So if you wish to speak, you raise your hand, you say your name and your presentation. Wonderful. So I see that we have a first hand raised. Vincent, so can you unmute your mic? I can't pronounce your first name, so if you can tell us your first name and then share your views on the results.
Hi, good night. My name is Caprine Vincent. I was a person, but I was very impressed with presentations. My view is, yes, interpersonal has been impeded, as it were, in the form that we can't be connected physically, but because of COVID-19 and the fact that a lot of people are under health restrictions, they're still able to communicate via social media. And so the village has become a lot smaller internationally. Families are able to connect friends, and I'm able to even connect to platforms such as this to be able to benefit. So while the interpersonal relationship has been impeded on one end in physical contact, you still have where you can still see the person smile, you can still connect with persons of like minds and loved ones. Thank you very much and enjoy the night, everyone.
Thank you very much, Preen, for your input, and for our first timer, that was wonderful. Let's show some appreciation for our first brave participant from the audience who shared her view. Thank you so very much. So who wants to be the second person? Okay, I see a hand. Distinguished Toastmaster Marcella. So can you unmute your mic and share your point of view with us?
Madam Moderator, I was only congratulating the, the first audience member. But when called upon as Toastmasters, it's always an opportunity to perfect our art of impromptu speaking. I truly enjoy the both sides and the arguments that both of them bring forward. I am of the view that the social media complements our life, our daily life, and we have seen that with the advent of COVID and its impact in our lives. So I am definitely against moot this time. And simply because it really does enhance our lives. What I think is a challenge though, is the way we as people use social media and allow it to overcome that of our physical touch of people. So I think it's our use of social media that really impacts our lives and may bring in that negative energy towards what social media is there for. It is an opportunity to be a lot closer, and we are experiencing this right now in this debate. Margarita.
Thank you very much for your input, distinguished Toastmaster Marcella. Let's show some appreciation for our speakers. They are just taking the challenge and making the plunge. Awesome. I see we have another participant, Toastmaster Daphne Fulham. So unmute your mic and share your perspective with us.
Now, what I would say is that social media adds another dimension to interpersonal communication. And anything that adds another dimension cannot be impeding something. Nothing remains static or stationary. And so communication is one of those things that expands. And we have expanded our ability to communicate with people by having the addition of social media. So now I can sit here in my living room and communicate with people who are in Australia. That's over 12 hours away. I can communicate with someone who is in South Africa or someone who is in Antigua or the Bahamas. That for me is an extension of my ability to communicate and no way impedes my interpersonal communication skills. That's my thought.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Daphne. Oh my gosh, I'm so loving this discussion. I see we have another participant, Toastmaster Rhonda. So unmute your mic and share with us.
Thank you, moderator. Good evening to all our distinguished Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and specially invited guests. With regard to this particular moot, whether social media impedes interpersonal communication, it reminds me a bit of sometimes in church, you know, they tell you the poor devil has a hard time because we blame the devil for many things that has nothing to do with him. Choices that we have made and so. And personal communication, whether it's good or not, has much to do with the persons involved in the interpersonal relationship, in interpersonal communication. In itself, social media has allowed us to interact and communicate with larger groups, with groups we may not have been able to do so, with groups that have been limited based on our location to connect with, and has allowed us to be able to enhance how we do it and to use our creativity to be able to communicate even in a setting where we see that it should be restricted, but we are able now to interact with persons even across, not just to different countries, but to different countries at the same time. It allows us at the times when we would not be able to communicate with persons because of they're not in the same country, or we're not in the same place, or we have other time constraints, that we can use the social media, whether it's by WhatsApp, whether it's by Zoom, whether it's by email, anything like that, and allows us to have that communication. Even in situations where we find ourselves, like one of the first speakers said, we find ourselves more introverted and may not have been able to speak. This allows a fairly safe platform where we can communicate more. So with regard to the moot, I would say against it that the social media does not impede, but it does enhance interpersonal communication. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you so very much to all our participants. I really love this part. You are very engaging, and I want to thank you so very much. It's a pity that we can't entertain all those eager people who want to air their views, but I really want to say thank you. So let us show some emojis for all our speakers and to you for being such a wonderful audience. Our teams will be coming back in together with our judges so that we can go to the exciting part of it, the rebuttal and closing remarks. I know you're having fun, so sit tightly in your seats while we await the second half. If the first one was good, you can imagine what the second is going to be. So our Zoom master will alert us when all of our speakers and the thank you.
Pretty well, know.
For the church tomorrow.
Oh,
Okay, India, whichever one. Pick one, because I can't see all of them.
Hello, Madam Zoom Master.
Hello, good evening. I am visiting you to advise you that I will be calling you back to the main debate room.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think distinguished Toastmasters also demonstrate it because it is specifically when the V, when your palm is facing you. So if you do the V with your palm facing yourself, yeah. Do we just leave the room then?
Now, over your convocation.
Boa noite.
Okay. Boa noite, Sheila.
Quando vai me avisando para que o tempo chega para by back na main debate room.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Sheila.
You're welcome.
Nos may sabay of tananta sa kano, Sheila?
Nasa sa kano.
Ah, okay.
Sì, pero bitigo by na judges on rata mit sak boss na. Oops,
Did
sorry.
you notice that too? The second speaker from proposition.
We finished? Room 1 finished.
No,
That's
no,
great.
no. I fell out.
Oh.
I need to go back. I fell out.
But I see a lot of other people from the room 1 in here.
You're finished?
No.
Sean is here. A lot of people of room 1 is in here. What's happening?
I know that I fell out.
You can go back in, Sean.
Yes.
Hey, Sean.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Nadia.
How
Long
are
time.
you? Good to
Yeah,
see you.
Good to see you. Well, you see me, I don't see you, but